Welcome back to another video, and unfortunately the 2025 Rugby League season has come to an end. Now, it is with great disappointment that I sort of make this video, and as frustrating as it is that the season is done and probably not definitely not the ending that we wanted to, I think it's important that, one, I reflect on the season as a whole. I bring my honesty towards this video and sort of have a little bit of an inward look at myself as well, as a player, as a person, and at my overall season. I'm not making this to sort of be a pity video or to feel sorry for myself because of the result that we got. More so, this is just about honestly reflecting on what I've done this year, where I can make improvements, because at the end of the day, I'm not perfect. I wouldn't coach anybody to be perfect. So in order for me to have an honest reflection on what I'm doing, and I sort of share this journey honestly with you as well, it would be wrong of me to brush under the carpet what happened over the weekend in France. So here it is, bringing out honesty. So I suppose first and foremost, and I have a couple of notes here because I didn't want to leave anything out. So if I'm looking down, that's exactly why. But first and foremost, obviously, extremely grateful for the fans, for the support, and just for everyone who's been in my corner this season. I've had a lot of support from my family, from my friends, and a really, really great bunch of teammates that I got to share the field with. Legends of the game, obviously, with Bruno and Chris Hill retiring at the end of the season as well. It probably wasn't the end that any of them would have dreamed of. But nevertheless, absolute legends of the game. And getting to share the field with them is something really special. And I'm really grateful to have got to be a part of their final season of Rugby League. So that is it's something that's really important to me, getting to spend time with my teammates, and sort of the crew that we had at Bradford this year was absolutely awesome. So massive credit for that. And I think without a doubt, I'm really disappointed that I didn't get to play in the last game of the season, in that semi-final. I was dropped for the last game of the year, and it really broke my heart that I didn't get to play a part of it. And again, as I mentioned, this isn't a video about pity. This is more about just me being honest with myself and with everyone, really, that is just absolutely disappointed. And coaches make decisions, and that is sport, and that's professional sport, and there's always going to be a winner and a loser, and there's always going to be someone disappointed. And obviously, looking at the back end of the season, the way I finished our last regular game in the league, it wasn't my best performance, and then I became as sick as a dog for the second Fev game, and then wasn't selected for the semi-final. So that is what it is. That is what it is with sport. And part of being a professional athlete, you have to be able to recognise and look inward and say, if I was the best player on the pitch or the best available player, I would have been selected. And I need to take account of that and go, okay, how can I improve, and what areas of my game can I work on towards next season? Because there's no point in whinging and moaning about what has happened. All I can do is reflect on the season and then work on myself as a person, as a player, and try and be better. Then the quote that I wrote down, and the first quote I wrote down is, what's your next best decision? And I was listening to a podcast that, actually prior to the game, after I found out I wasn't selected, and this is what came up. It's called Stay in Process, and this is what came up, and one of the themes of the podcast was, what's your next best decision? So the easy decision, the childish decision, is for me to moan, kick stones, and not be a good teammate when I found out that I'm not playing in the semi-final, having played every single game throughout the season, throughout the regular season. I did not miss a game. So the easy thing to do is kick stones, but that's not the person who I want to be. So I kind of kept that at the front of my mind. What's my next best decision? How can I prep the team as best as I possibly can to make sure that they perform on the pitch? How could I warm up and bring as much energy as possible, bring as much energy around the group throughout the weekend in France? And what can I do to make sure that I'm a good teammate? And that's what I'm going to sort of keep at the front of my mind throughout this off season, is what's my next best decision with what I do. And the other quote that I wrote down is, it does nothing to be a victim. Being a victim does absolutely nothing. And that's sort of one of the reasons why I'm touching on these things throughout this video, because if I had a victim's mentality, I wouldn't make this video, for one. And two, it doesn't get you anywhere feeling sorry for yourself. Because at the end of the day, Jocko Willink, I hope I've said that right, he has a book called Extreme Ownership. And if you take anything away from that book, it's that you are 100% accountable for all of your actions. If you worry about external things, that's out of your realm of control. That's out of your circle of control. So one of the things that I think is absolutely amazing is just taking 100% accountability for everything that goes on. And people might say, oh, but you can't worry about the weather. You can't worry about what your teammates do. But if you take 100% accountability, then you feel like you're in control. Once you start worrying about what other people do, other people think about the weather, about whatever may happen, or whether there's going to be traffic on the road, or whether you're going to get a good night's sleep, you just control what you do. And then everything else is in your realm of control. Once you worry about external, then you're getting yourself caught up in nonsense. So, yeah, a few things that I wanted to sort of touch on throughout this video as well is just how I feel like this has been, regardless of the result on the weekend, and how emotional I was about the season coming to an end. The groups, obviously, people are going to go their separate ways. And regardless of how emotional I felt about the result, because I genuinely feel like it was really difficult to be on the sideline and watch that game unfold and have absolutely no part to play in the 80 minutes of and have no contribution towards the outcome. But all in all, I still think I need to reflect on this season and actually look at the things that I did well, look at the things that I could have done better. And I've sort of broken that up into this season into my diet, gym and extras, sleep, moving, and then I'll touch on a little bit about the off season towards the end of this video. But I think first and foremost, I do genuinely believe that this as a whole has been the best season of my career so far. Obviously, as I mentioned, I didn't miss a regular season game, and there were ups and downs, and there were times when I was playing well, and there was times when my form dropped, and I'm very aware of that, and I'm very aware of that I am not a complete product. So it's not in an arrogant way that I'm saying that, but I think if I reflect on previous seasons where probably my worst and my best games were miles apart, and and I was injured, I was either needing a surgery. So over the past seasons, 2024, 2023, and 2022, I either got a surgery. In 22, I got a surgery. In 23, I spent the whole season needing a surgery. And then again in 24, I got a surgery at the start of the season. So and then prior to that, I was a young kid at Huddersfield, being sent on loan, or just simply not playing at all. So I think I have to be able to reflect inward and go, this has been the best season because I was available to play for every single game, including the one where I was glued to the bog all week because I put my hand up. I was 18th man that game, but in that quarterfinal, but I was available and ready for selection for an entire season. Didn't miss any games due to concussion. Didn't miss any games due to injury. So that in itself, obviously, was massive for me, and I think that's come down to a bit of consistency in my life and a little bit of a really, really good preseason as well, which helps when you're not off the back of a surgery. So that has contributed towards the year that I've had, and I think that reflecting on myself, all I want to do is get better from this because this is not the complete product of me yet. I think the only way is up. And part of the reason why I'm saying this is because this is an accountability message to myself as well that, well, Ronan, you can't just say that, and words mean nothing if you don't take action. So I do think that I have a lot further to go and a lot more to learn. But I think I can also reflect on the year that has been, and just simply for the fact that I haven't been injured, it's therefore led to me having a better year. So the first thing I want to touch on in terms of what has led to the year and my reflections on the year is my diet. I think I've never struggled with the food I eat in terms of it being bad food. I've always eaten a really, really high protein diet. I've always eaten really clean. I think this year in particular, I've taken it up a notch with how detailed I am in the type of food I've eaten. And I spoke about this a lot on my podcast and in previous videos. When I was younger, it was just calories and protein, and the quality of the food in which I was eating, I wasn't too concerned about. I was only bothered about getting as much food in as possible, regardless of how I felt, regardless if I was glued to the toilet, spewing my ring up. It didn't matter as long as I hit my protein and got a load of calories in. Whereas this year, I've made a conscious effort in terms of nailing my diet and being really, really aware of the foods that I'm eating, trying to eat quality whole foods, single ingredient foods, and removing just all processed shit out of my diet. But there's still room for improve, and where it needs, I suppose, needs work, I think is I can focus on my meal timings better, so the timings of my meals can be better, and I can get more in depth with my tracking. at times when I'm eating the same stuff, I would have let myself slip, and I have to hold myself accountable to that. Not in terms of overeating, just in terms of not tracking as well as I could have, because I'm eating the same thing every single day. I also think towards the back end of the season, part of it may have been laziness, part of it may have just been digestion, to be honest, is I wasn't eating as much steak, as much red meat, and part of it was just because we weren't getting the butcher orders as a group of lads. We weren't ordering off the butcher as much, so then I was just opting for the easy option in the shop, which I need to be accountable for as well. So I think that I can be better in the future and next season in terms of making sure my red meat consumption is high, because I think in pre-season and probably the front end of the season I was probably putting away like probably 7 to 14 steaks a week, whereas that sort of dropped off to two or three a week. And I do, like, it might sound silly, but I do think that that's one of the areas I can improve with my diet. Besides that, I think in general I'm in a pretty good spot with that. The next thing I wanted to touch on was gym and extras. So my training away from training in the championship, obviously we'd only train 3 to 4 days a week at most. It was usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, play on a Sunday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday and play on Friday, and then having a weekend off. So I think that, and I have touched on a bit about training splits in previous videos as well, but I think looking at what you do away from training when you're trying to get that 1% and gain that edge is absolutely massive for athletes, in particular in the championship. When you're not in that Super League environment, that full-time environment, you need to bridge that gap somewhere. So obviously in pre-season it's easy. Your program's there and you follow it to a T, and you're pretty wrecked to do anything away from training. But then you come into in-season, and we had a lot of Friday night games as well. So there is time, and you have like 9-day turnaround. If you're going Friday to Sunday, there is time for extras. So I think sort of the inflection point in the season where I started to notice my work capacity go up again, whereas there may have been a bit of complacency or a bit of just doing what I'm told and not looking for extras, is when me and Ock came together and we started training together away from training as well. So on our days off, we started training together, and having someone with you to hold you accountable. As I say, iron sharpens iron. So having someone there alongside me and him were just going at each other the whole time and just trying to push each other. And that period when we decided to start doing that, one, it had a ripple effect on the group, because more and more of the lads started coming with us and doing it with us, either at training or away from training. But not only that, I think that iron sharpens iron. So having Ock with me as a training partner, and anyone who knows Jade Nakamura, he's massive. So he was pushing me and I was pushing him. So I think that that sort of gym and extra stuff is absolutely key. And that sort of ties into the next topic, which is sleep and recovery and extras as well. So one of the things I think I could have worked on is getting more sauna and ice bath sessions, more of the contrast therapy sessions in particular this season, because we had a lot of Friday games. And Heist, obviously Keezy's, shout out Heist, we love Heist, but Heist doesn't open on a Thursday. So our usual Saturday contrast sessions, as those Friday games started rolling around, because Heist wasn't open, they just sort of got brushed to the side. And we did everything else correct in terms of our preparation for the game, but we didn't have those contrast therapy sessions. So I do think in terms of my recovery, one of the things I'm going to be trying to implement in the coming season is more contrast therapy throughout the week. I think like early in the season, I was probably averaging in excess of 45 minutes of sauna a week, and that probably came right the way down to 15 to 20 minutes of sauna a week. So that is on me again. It's something that I can work on and something that I can do to make sure that I'm not leaving any stones unturned, really. And I don't feel like it was anything more than the fact that Heist just simply wasn't open, and that is an absolute bullshit cop-out. And I'm not saying that's a lame excuse, but again, when you're managing clients and doing all of these things, the weeks quickly go by, in particular when you're recovering from games and that, but that needs to be priority. And then that sort of leads us into sleep, work-life balance, and where I can improve my sleep. So as an online coach, obviously I make my own hours. I manage clients, I jump on calls, I sort of structure my day as I like. I'm in a very, very privileged position in which I get to do that around my rugby, but also it is easy to sort of slip into bad habits with your sleep hygiene and your consistency of your sleep. And I think this is one of the biggest areas that I need to work on throughout the off season and throughout next season, is making sure that my wake time and bedtimes are more consistent, because after a game I really struggle sleeping. So I stay up stupid late on a Sunday, or a Friday evening. It's even worse. I'd be struggling to get to sleep till maybe 3-4 in the morning, and then it leads into the rest of the week. So having quality sleep routine and sleep hygiene, not that I'm not doing that, but I think it's still something that I can improve on. I think I can still find another gear with that and find a bit more consistency with my sleep and wake times, because I'm already sleeping in a cold dark room, tracking my sleep on my Whoop, taking supplements like magnesium and zinc to help me sleep and help me get into that deep sleep and that REM sleep. But with all of that, there's still a lot of room for me to improve. And I think that in particular about managing those night games and trying to get myself to wind down earlier after a Friday night game is going to be massive for the coming season. So that's a bit of an area of improvement, and just sort of structure my days around my coaching as well, so that I'm making sure that I have complete off days or complete downtime. Because with Sunday games, you roll straight into check-ins and coaching again on Monday, and you haven't really had a day to switch off. People say, "Oh, but you're off on Saturday," but you're not. You're prepping for a game. Like I said, we go to the contrast therapy at Heist on Saturdays. We're foam rolling, we're eating all right, and then all of a sudden you're just rolling through the weeks. So I think having a complete off day where I can sort of take myself away and detach from both rugby and coaching is going to be something that I'm going to work on as well. And again, I feel like I'm coming across like what a privilege this is to be saying. But again, when you're looking for one percenters, it's okay to be privileged and recognize where you can get better. I'm not saying that this lifestyle is for everybody, but when you're trying to be a professional athlete and you're trying to be the best version of you, these are the one percenters. So yeah, I do come across. Well, I may be coming across to someone, they might be saying, "What does this man have to actually moan about?" Yeah, you're absolutely right. But when you're chasing the 1%, you have to be willing to accept that you need to look inward again and reflect on all of these things. So the next thing is obviously the little bit of disruption early in the season with buying an apartment, purchasing this place, having no kitchen, because as soon as I got in, I ripped the kitchen out. So 3 weeks of no cooking essentially. I don't think it really affected me performance more than anything, but I think obviously looking on to the next season, being settled in one place and knowing that like I'm not building any furniture, not doing any renovations, that I can just cook my meals and not be like here, there, and everywhere. Like I left York, and then I moved to Leeds, and I was living with one of the lads, but like it was only temporary. Then I moved in here, ripped out a kitchen, all of these things, and again, it's not an excuse. It's nothing like that. But it's just things that I need to be aware of. That hopefully going into next season, it's going to allow for me to be even more in my routine and more rigid with my diet and structure. And I'm excited for that. So that is something that I wanted to mention as well. And I think that just more than anything was just a bit disruptive, a bit of a pain, less than any real knock-on effect on the season. It was just something that took up a lot of mental space, like buying and furnishing an apartment for the first time. Just a lot of mental energy went into that, and that probably, as just a natural knock-on effect, would have affected my output in training. And again, looking on the season ahead, that's not going to be the case. So excited for that. And yeah, I think shout out to the lads for helping me build the furniture. But I think that's sort of everything throughout the season. And then we sort of look onto the off season. So the plan of attack for the off season now is, well, I was in the gym today. I was running yesterday. I haven't really stopped. Obviously, we travelled back from Toulouse, and I haven't really stopped my training. So I'm going to be going on a holiday, and I'm going to sort of deload the training, so bring everything back, and then I'm going to ramp everything back up ahead of pre-season again. So it is important to have a bit of time away, but the thing for me is I actually love training. Like, I feel worse when I don't train. And I genuinely believe that it probably takes 4 to 7 days to completely, like, deload your body of all fatigue. Like, after that, it's probably just excessive. So it'll probably look like, for me, I'll probably give myself 4 to 7 days at some stages off season. I have 2 internationals for Ireland as well to be aware of. So at some stage, I'll take 4 to 7 days where I'm either like doing a day on, day off training, or a little bit of unstructured, untracked training, things I enjoy like beach weights, arms, going for a couple of jogs. And then I will be ramping up my off-season program, and it will be all guns blazing ahead of the following season. So I'm making sure that I leave no stone unturned, because often people mistake that, thinking the off-season is a time to get fat, get lazy, eat whatever they want, don't do any training, and pre-season is a time to chase all that back, whereas you are 20 steps ahead if you just make sure that you're at least maintaining, if not improving, through the off-season. Because at the end of the day, for the next 4 to 6 weeks, I do not need to make a tackle. So my shoulders are going to feel better, my back's going to feel better, my knees are going to feel better, I'm going to have less inflammation throughout the body, and as a result of that, I can actually output more in my training. Whereas by the back end of the year, Jesus, you're barely lifting a weight, you're struggling to walk at times, you're waking up after a game and you're barely getting out of bed. So it is something that excites me, and that sort of brings me on to the off-season program that I am putting together for athletes. So regardless of when your off-season is, I'm putting together this program for athletes to make sure you are smashing your off-season and nailing absolutely everything. I will drop it below, drop a link below this video for that program, but it's going to be absolutely awesome. So if you're an athlete and you feel like you don't know how to structure your off-season, I will be dropping that below. The final thing that I sort of wanted to touch on is another quote. I read this in my daily Stoic book that I've been reading as of late, and I sort of want to wrap the video up on this because I think it's an important mention, and I think it sort of summarizes sort of why I made that video. And not only that, just how my outlook on the result over the weekend, the whole season, and just a bit how I feel in terms of my emotions, because I was pretty emotional. But anyways, while you don't control external events, you retain the ability to decide how you respond to those events. And I read that, ironically, on the day that I got dropped. So the day I got dropped, that was on the Daily Stoic. You get a page a day to read, and it's a bit of stoicism, and you sort of can reflect on that. But that was the quote that was on the day that I got dropped. Obviously, gutted that I realised that I wasn't going to get to be a part of the biggest game of the year. That's the long and short of it. I was not going to be a part of the biggest game of the year for Bradford Bulls in 2025. And that quote, I'll read it again because it hit home with me. While you don't control external events, you retain the ability to decide how you respond to those events. Wow. That hit home for me. So that's my reflections on the 2025 season. I think I've touched on all the points that I want to touch on. I look forward to refreshing myself over the off-season. I will continue to journal. I will continue to reflect. I will continue to keep at the front of my mind, how can I be the best version of me? How can I play this game for a long time and continue to chase those 1%ers? Because as a coach, as a human being, as an athlete, if you're not in pursuit of a higher standard of living, a higher level of performance, and a higher level of being, I genuinely don't understand what the point is in waking up every day and going through the motions. The only outcome that you should be looking for is being the best version of you. And the best version of you is on the other side of a lot of hard work. And I'm very aware then the next level up is going to be more hard work for me. In order for me to get up another level, in order for me to be the best player that I can be, in order for me to be the best coach I can be, it's going to be on the other side of a lot of fucking hard work. And I'm willing to do that. Thanks for watching, everybody.